Tonight, New York City FC looks to get in the win column for the first time in 2024 as they welcome Toronto FC from north of the border to Yankee Stadium. It's time for NYCFC Pregame Live. To break it all down, here are Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
Yeah, here at the Big Ball Orchard in the South Bronx, New York City FC trying to recover from a difficult start against the resurgent Toronto FC. New York City blanked in their first two games on the road. Then they get home, and a great goal from Santi Rodriguez in the opening half against Portland. Best half of soccer in 24, but then the late collapse and the 2-1 loss to Portland. Well, I'm Glenn Crooks. There's Matty Lawrence. And in just a few minutes, we'll be providing the live commentary for you on the New York City FC Network. That begins at 7:15. Pregame show with Nick Cushing, exclusive interview with the New York City coach as we talk about the 0-3 start and the difficulties at the end of that Portland game and what the team did to try to recover from that emotionally more than anything else. And I think, Matty, when we look back at that game, just generally, and then we'll get into some specifics here, I think, and you're going to hear my call on the two Portland goals, and it was kind of shocking, demoralizing for us. I mean, we weren't on the pitch.
We felt it.
Yeah, and it was so you've certainly played in games where all of a sudden you thought you were going to get 3 points, and next thing you knew, you went into the dressing room with a loss and nothing.
Yeah, I've certainly played in a number of those games and been the victor and also the recipient of conceding the two. And obviously when you concede the two late on, or when you concede one late on and you lose 1-0, it feels a lot worse than if you conceded in the first minute or the 55th minute. And I think there would have been shock. I think there would have been horror. There may have been tears in the dressing room after the game, metaphorically or literally. It would have hurt. It would have hurt. But you then can't take it into Monday's training. And of course, you can't take it into today's game. I think you have to get it out of your system in the midweek's training. And it's up to the coaching staff as well to get the players over it. Look, it would have hurt the coaching staff as well. But they're not the ones out there performing. They have to make sure that the self-belief is back in this team. And I think in the first half, we saw an inordinate amount of self-belief in that first half. I thought it was a terrific half of football. And as we said at the time, NYCFC should have been 2-0 or 3-0 up.
But that's been the discussion since really last season, off-season, postseason meetings between the staff and the leadership. And leadership is something that we're going to address with Nick. And we're going to also hear from Mitja Ilinic, who will start his fourth consecutive game here tonight as the lineups have been announced. So we'll roll that in this lower third area for you for New York City FC. Just two changes. James Sands back in for Andres Pereira. Sands was out last week with a red card. And also Julian Fernandez will start on the right side in place of Andres Jason. But let's look at the first half here, Matty, and let's talk over this. I didn't provide any audio for this Santi Rodriguez goal. It was kind of a recirculation after the corner kick. But let's look at it here. And this is how New York City took the lead in the 10th minute. So you get the corner. They're on top of it. This is where you see they're sharp. Pereira knocks it back in, chested down by Parks. Martins tries to shoot, but there's Santi alert and finishing.
Yeah, and I love that finish as well. He doesn't try to hit it too hard. He makes sure he concentrates on keeping the ball down, and I love the way he cuts across the ball with the outside of his right foot.
That's right.
Curls it into that far post. It's a difficult skill. It really is. Certainly for a player like Santi Rodriguez, who hasn't scored many goals. It's just the way he hangs out. Obviously, he took the corner, and then he gets himself into the box, and he could easily have snatched at that. This is a player who, for me, doesn't produce enough in terms of goals and or assists. And we've seen him snatch at efforts this season and last season. But there, for me, he was really fully focused. You could see the way that he approached the ball. He didn't try to hit it too hard. He got that front knee over the ball, cuts across it. I thought it was a perfect technique. You'd show any child or anybody who wants to get better at striking the football with the outside of their right foot, that is exactly how to do it. It was perfect. It was perfection.
It was perfection. I thought it was interesting to note. Let's look at it again. Now watch. Thiago Martins got an assist. Now watch Martins. He's pretty much in the middle of things right now. He's up for the corner there. Martins goes to shoot. It deflects off of a Portland. He got an assist on that.
No, he didn't.
A assist. I knew you would love that.
We know that MLS are desperate to get as many people with points as possible, but they can't possibly be assists when you've shot and the shot gets blocked. Doesn't the Portland defender get an assist?
Miami has like 14 assists and 6 goals or something.
Well, there's a surprise. It's Miami. Let's give them the.
All right, leave Miami alone. They won.
It's not Miami's fault. I'm not saying it's Miami's fault. I'm saying it's everything surrounding Miami.
How about the games today? Well,
awesome.
we'll get to them in a bit. But the 3 previous games which have been completed, they had a red card in every game, and then a wild finish in Chicago, and some interesting post-game comments from the Montreal coach, the first-year coach, Laurent Courtois. All right, now we're going to get to the 85th minute and then the 7th minute of stoppage time. So New York City, different second half, and that's what we're going to get to with Nick Cushing and Mitja Ilinic in a moment. But here were the tying and game-winning goals for Portland. Anyway, Portland has it back. Here's the cutback, the shot. It's 1-1. Anthony finishes, and New York City, Thiago Martins, poor ball out of the back. Portland counters, and Anthony, with his 3rd goal of the season, had a brace in the opener against the Colorado Rapids in a 4-1 win, and New York City could be denied their first win of the season. Anthony, left edge of the area. We're now at 96-37. Here's a ball towards the back post. That's a goal. In stoppage time, Portland got the winner. In stoppage time, Portland got the winner. It's Evander, the Brazilian, the entire bench sprinting down the far corner. He was permitted. Nothing denied there. Granted, it was from 25 yards, maybe a little bit beyond. Angle left, but a technician like him, you complete the sentence. You have to close him down, right?
Yeah, you do. Look, of course it hurts, and of course for any goal in football, you can make people culpable. You know, even when Diego Maradona dribbled it from the halfway line against England in the World Cup, not that I'm still bitter and twisted about that, but he went past 5 people. It was one of the best goals I've ever seen, but there were many people culpable for that game. It wasn't just the genius of Maradona. So the same for the 2 goals. The first one, Pereira does not need to try and win the ball against Mosquera. He has no need to try and win the ball. All he needs to do is shepherd him down the line and block the cross. As it was, he tries to nick the ball, tries to win the ball, and then Mosquera gets a yard on him and pulls it back. And then nobody's picking up a midfield runner. There's 4 or 5 light blue shirts all lined up on the 6-yard box. There's no stagger. They all get taken out of the game by one ball, by one pullback to that second 6-yard box in between the top of the 6-yard box and the penalty spot, which is where so many goals are scored from when you get to the byline, and nobody's picking up a runner. So that's the first goal. And then the second goal is even worse because it's everybody knows, you're looking up at the stadium clock. Players, believe you me, watch the clock. They look at the clock. Nobody gets within a yard of Evander, who is a good player, a good technician, and forces his head down and blocks the shot. There's people around him watching, thinking, oh, somebody else will close him down. And what happens when that happens is nobody ends up doing it. Why do 3 people not close him down?
I'm sure at the back at times, like 2 center backs, sometimes you look at each other.
Yes,
there's that quick glance, like, oh, who goes, who steps? Yeah. And then it's too late.
It was too late. Look, it's a great finish, yes, but you have to stop the cross or you stop the shot. The Evander goal, of course, you have to stop the shot.
All right, and that call was heard on the New York City FC network. Now, whether you're walking your dog in the foothills of Albuquerque or you're at your favorite pub near Selhurst Park, the White Horse, for instance, before you go in to see a Brighton Palace Brighton game, or ordering your favorite hors d'oeuvres at Sereno's in Long Branch, no matter where you are in the world, you can listen on the New York City FC network, nycfc.com/radio, NYCFC app. And today, Apple TV viewers, drop it down and listen to the hometown commentary. All right, let's get to this leadership thing, because I've pressed the issue this week, and we've discussed it. And here's the post-game presser, a clip with Nick Cushing. So this is right after the game, and the leadership issue, at least presents itself. That leadership, there were issues in this particular game anyway for Nick Cushing. He mentions it briefly, but I think the point is made.
I think it's twofold. I think it's number one is we have to continue to develop the new and the younger talent that we have to understand the moments and how to play in them and how to absorb the pressure and how to consistently put intensity into the game. That's the first thing. The likes of Mijatovic and Fernandez and these type of guys, real talented potential players that are going to be incredible for the future. The other side is demand the leadership from the likes of Keaton Parks, Thiago Martins, Burke, Risa, Andres Pereira, these guys that have been in the league, that understand this. At halftime, Portland aren't going to come out and just play through the 45 minutes. It's 1-0. They're in a game. We have to show the leadership to rip back the control of the game and move forwards. That's been our real unique characteristic over our championship years. That even when we're under pressure here, we go and get the second goal and we go on the front foot. And we had moments today. Not enough of them.
So that was post-game Nick Cushing up. When and this is a tease, I'm not going to play it now, but I think if you have a moment where you can listen to the pregame show, which starts at 7:15 on the network, on the app, if you like, or on the TuneIn app or nycfc.com/radio. Nick, I really pressed the issue a little bit about the leadership, and I think he not only trying to identify who are the leaders in those situations, but would you have liked them to have responded differently? And we never quite connected on it totally. And, Nick is obviously, he doesn't want, and he did say at one point, it's not any one player. And certainly that's understood.
Yeah.
And we're observing from a great distance here, but we're also not seeing a team respond when there are those moments. Matty, are there not moments in every soccer match for the most part? There's moments.
Yes.
And it's how you handle them that might really reflect your true character.
Yeah, absolutely. And leadership is never about one person. A team sport is not about a dictatorship. It's not just about one person being the leader. It's about the whole. It has to be about the whole team. But of course, younger players or less experienced players, they don't always have to be the young ones. Sometimes you get a 23, 24-year-old out of college who doesn't have much experience, but you have an 18 or 19-year-old who's played 100 games. It's not just about age. It's about experience, and it's about being in those situations before. And you have to look to the players who've been in those situations before to drag you through that tough moment. I think the first 10 minutes of the second half was okay, but then after that it went downhill and gradually, and it's felt as though NYCFC were trying more and more to defend the lead rather than go out and get the second goal in that second half. And we saw so many times last season when that happened. Look, you compare and contrast. The first half performance was magnificent. It was right off the bat. It was in your face from start to finish, or in the opposition's face, Portland, from start to finish. But you knew that at 1-0 at halftime, you were going to get a reaction from Phil Neville and the opposition team. You can't then come out and perform like the metaphorical big girl's blouse and just not give up, but lack leadership, lack aggression. And I've said it before, aggression doesn't mean going out and punching someone in the face. Aggression means getting in the face of your opponent, forcing their heads down, winning 50-50 battles. And I don't think we saw enough of that. And sometimes, as you say, there's moments in game. Sometimes it is winning a 60 or 40 tackle against in that second half would have brought the crowd to life, brought the rest of the team to life, and then they may have moved on from there. I thought it was pretty timid and tepid in that second half. I'm not saying I felt those two goals coming per se, but I certainly felt a goal coming throughout the second half. Look, the two were unfortunate, but you did feel at least an equaliser coming.
Yeah, no question. We want to say hi to Samuel, who's watching from South Africa. Wonder if he's a Bradley Carnell fan. And,
yep.
And we Matty and I, at least off mic, have talked a little bit about that South Africa team, that it was comprised mostly from players, the one that did so well in the African Nations Cup. the almost the entire starting lineup played on the same club team in the top tier of South Africa. So there's something to be said. We're swaying for the topic a bit, but there's something to be said about on the international level connecting with players who are familiar with each other.
Absolutely, togetherness. The majority of the Spanish team back when it was so successful played via the Barcelona and Real Madrid, and they could come together and fight off the team animosity, but they all knew each other, or the majority of them knew each other so well. I know that's at the very highest level, but there is something to be said by a team that grows together. And I think that throughout the world, quite often that is a problem because players come and go so very often. But I guess you only need to look at a Liverpool side, the Bayern Munich side that was very, very successful, that Barcelona side that I'm talking about. So many of them played together for many years and had a true understanding and a number. Again, let's go back to it, a number of leaders. I look down at this NYC, New York City FC team, and it lacks leaders. And you can see it body language-wise, you can see it vocally. A leader doesn't have to lead by shouting and screaming. There's different captains and different leaders. Somebody like a Steven Gerrard or an Alan Shearer or Gary Lineker. Of course, I'm talking about English people because that's when I grew up and people I grew up watching. They led by example, weren't particularly screamers. But then there's a John Terry who was a shouter and a screamer, and he led by example as well. I don't think you see either or down there very often. And
that's we're going to say Stat Island Soccer is asking us, what can we do to get a win? And I think we've pointed to it right here. Get through the tough moments and on-field leadership.
Yes.
Will
and team togetherness as well.
Team together. Yep. One other, I wanted to play one more clip, and this is from Micha Ilinic, who was just it had just been announced that he'd been called up to the Serbian team, so he'll be playing for the full team. Hopefully, getting a chance to play against
Ilinic.
Portugal, huh?
Not Micha Ilinic, though.
What did I say?
Micha Ilinic. Yeah.
Oh, Slovenia.
Mijatovic.
I'm sorry.
Mijatovic is Serbia, right?
Yeah, he's sorry. What did I say? I confuse that, don't I? You've called me on that before. All right, so Slovenia. So Slovenia will play. That's Ilinic now.
Yeah.
They will play Portugal, one of their two matches. So we hope he gets a chance. But the question about leadership was addressed to him.
Yes, I would say, like I mentioned, these older guys, let's say Berg Risa, also Keaton Parks, Thiago Martins. These are all vocal guys who we can learn, like we young guys you can learn from. And let's say when we do bad, they are the guys who will step out and say, hey, stop, like this is not okay. So yeah, obviously they are the guys that speak the most, and I think they're also the guys we can learn the most from. And yeah, I appreciate them for doing that, and on us is just to learn from them.
So it's kind of listing the leaders and who he looks up to. And what I found interesting is later on, when he was talking about his position at right back and improving there, he brought up a former New York City player.
Obviously, I think you all know Tinnerholm was probably the best right back in the league when he was playing here. And I watched him a lot also. And I think we are similar players. Like I try to attack the game as much as possible and go up, try to make crosses. And I think last year you saw I made 2 good assists, but it's not enough. Like I want more.
Tinnerholm, by the way, I stay connected to Anton. He's at Malmo. He's in Sweden. He's back home. And there was a report. You know, there's reports pretty constantly on social media. There was a report that had him coming back to MLS with an unnamed club, and then somewhere maybe speculating Minnesota. So I asked him, and he has confirmed that it's not happening. He also hasn't been playing. He's had a groin injury that's kind of been difficult, and he says it's being treated and that he's close to getting back. So Anton's close to getting back to playing with Malmo, and he's he's staying in Sweden.
Yeah, and look, he's a good player to look up to and try and mould your game on. And I do think Ilinic has a point. I do think they are similar players, play the game in a similar way. Of course, one of them we saw as a very experienced international player, and the other one, yes, an international, but at lower levels until now, and much less experienced. I think what Ilinic said there is, first, he needs to improve going forward, and his productivity, delivery into the box, and of course, defending as well. I think that's something that he will grow into as the experience comes. I do think that is one of the negative aspects of NYCFC, is that they've got two relatively inexperienced orthodox fullbacks who just don't deliver as much as when in 2021, when it was Chinahome and Goody or whoever it may have been. Very good, experienced players delivering goals and delivering numerous assists as well. I think that is a major part or a lack of this team.
And this is, we wanted to put up this note because there are supporters that have an issue with Nick Cushing, and the word here is leadership starts with the manager. He took 100% responsibility for what happened last week, and being at training this week and talking to Nick and talking to the players a bit, it still seems, despite what's gone on, as a confident group that they're going about things the correct way. And Bakrar, Monsef Bakrar had 5 shots on target, which is the single season leader in MLS. So he leads in one category. That's 5 shots in a single game on goal. And I didn't get Nick to agree with me that at least 2 of them should have gone in. But he did say that, this is a part of the game that's really critical for him. And he certainly still believes that it'll get done. And something Ilinic said a little bit later about Nick Cushing is that he's the kind of coach that will come to you directly when there's a mistake or when there's something positive, and you'll go over it. You'll review it with the assistants. But the message from Ilinic in particular was that, they're behind Nick Cushing. That is the team. And I don't think you get an idea that anything's happening out there that they've stopped playing because of the manager. That's foolish to think that.
Yeah, that becomes notable very quickly when the team stops playing for their manager. That's for sure. I don't think anybody specifically goes out there with the thoughts of let's get the manager sacked. That's for certain. But there is that little bit of human psychology when you don't like the manager. I've been in those teams and seen it happen. You don't like the manager, and maybe you drop your levels by a percentage or 2, and that's all it takes. And the comment there about leadership begins with the manager or the head coach. Leadership does to a certain extent. He is the dictator, he's the head coach, but it doesn't matter who's on the sideline. They can't affect the leadership or the leaders on the pitch. If you have a team full of, a team that's lacking in leaders, it doesn't matter if you've got Jose Mourinho or Carlo Ancelotti on the sidelines. You're still lacking leaders on the pitch. When the times are hard, there's very little the man on the sideline can do. It doesn't matter who they are. You're reliant on the leaders in the actual team on the field. They're the only ones who can affect the leadership during the 90 minutes.
All right, to close out, let's just talk about the other coach on the other touchline, technical area, John Herdman in his first year. And the thing we noticed when Lorenzo Insigne, who certainly had issues last year, the DP from Italy, he now has 2 goals, both of them game winners, 2 wins and a draw. He's got both of their goals this year, 2 goals and 3 shutouts, undefeated coming in. But he made a beeline after he scored this game winner against Charlotte, made a beeline for the touchline and leapt into the arms of his coach, John Herdman. I thought it was pretty poignant. And Herdman was on an interview with SiriusXM FC, Tony Meola, and Brian Dunseth, and he addressed his relationship with Insigne.
With Lorenzo, I was just lucky it was him that jumped in my arms, because anyone else, I'm like 5'6", would have killed us. He's probably the only one, and he still nearly took us down. No, it was a class moment, like a really class moment for me and for the fans, because he's genuinely excited again. I mean, he carries a lot of pressure. He was never really healthy last year. He knows the weight is on his shoulders, but he knows that we're doing everything we can to put him in those little moments where he can bring his brilliance. And there might only be 1, 2, 3 of those moments a game, but we've made a commitment tactically to create those moments with the players we put around him. And
that's the most interesting part of that statement there, is that they're trying to create moments for him. And I think that he's showing an appreciation for that, perhaps.
Absolutely. Look, you only need to get Insigne and Bernardeschi on side and they will produce for you, because they are world-class players and they are still relatively young men in terms of football as well. They're not mid-late 30s like a Messi or Suarez, who are still having a positive effect as well. These are guys who've got a number of years ahead of them. And he talks about the pressure that Insigne feels. Well, with all due respect to MLS, I think he's felt a lot more pressure when he was playing at Napoli in Champions League games and things like that. I understand that having the name, there is a lot of focus on him, but he can handle that pressure, believe you me. He wouldn't have got to where he is unless he could handle pressure and pressurised situations. For me, it's all about getting those two guys on side, and Herdman seems to have done that.
Well, they're both in the 11 tonight, Insigne and Bernardeschi, and Toronto FC 2-0-1 here on the road against New York City FC 0-3. It all starts on the New York City FC network. Our live commentary, just a few minutes, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time on nycfc.com/radio, the New York City FC app, the TuneIn app, or also Apple TV today. If you're watching the game, be sure to use the drop-down feature to hear our radio commentary. Why wouldn't you after listening to all why would you want to? I know you still can't look at him, because he's such a nice-looking boy.
Face for the radio.
But, All right, for Matty Lawrence, I'm Glenn Crooks. We'll talk to you again soon.